12-2, what's going on? We're back here with another episode, and today I'm happy to have on one of my best friends, somebody I've known for years, somebody that I've been lucky enough to play sports with and do life with and go on a couple trips with and really just be a brother. I mean, just be a brother with, be a family with, and um, nobody I know really has worked harder to get to where he is at what he's doing, perfecting his craft, doing things day by day to get 1% better. And whether it was in sports at a young age, from middle school to high school to college, into now coaching in the business world and starting a podcast of his own, this guy just does it. It doesn't matter what gets in his way, what hurdles, what walls he may hit, he finds a way through and he keeps his head down and keeps on working. And so I'm excited for you guys today to get to hear a little bit of his story and how he got to where he is and just who this guy is, because I haven't even told you his name yet. But my buddy Tristan Gomez is going to share a little bit to start off about him and who he is, and then we'll kind of get into some of the meat and potatoes of this episode.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Joe. Yeah, so like you said, I'm Tristan Gomez. I recently in May graduated from the University of Portland where I played baseball. Spent 2 years there. Prior to that, I spent 2 years at Cal State Fullerton. And now I've graduated into the real world. And one thing when I graduated, I bet like many other people do, is they have no clue really what they want, right? You're kind of in a structured system where you're going to classes, you're playing sports, you kind of have everything kind of laid out for you. And then you get to the real world and it's like, what do I want to do? I have no idea. And so to start, I was just watching ESPN. They had Pat McAfee on, and I love Pat McAfee. I could watch that all day. And then next show was First Take, and you heard just Stephen A. and Shannon Sharp kind of just bashing on some athletes. And I was like, I kind of want to bring a more positive vibe when it comes to athletes. Like there's so much work that athletes put in, collegiate athletes, professional athletes, and even younger athletes. So I just figured like how could I bring a more positive aspect and kind of make it more seem like they're not just athletes, they're more people. Like there's so much that goes through their heads, so much work and time. And so I decided I'll start a podcast where I just interview athletes about the mental side of their sport and how they try to be better each and every day. So, I mean, like you said, I feel like you do the same thing where you meet with so many different people and they're trying to get 1% better every day. And so in my head, I'm like, if I'm going to talk to these people and their goal is to be better every day, I'm going to have to do the same. And so that's kind of where my journey has kind of just begun in the real world.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. I think one thing that kind of triggered in my head as you were talking, as you're watching the show and as you're hearing Stephen A, Shannon Sharp talk about um, just athletes in a negative manner, I think there's so much negativity like in the world. Like we wake up every day and it's almost like there's a default setting on our brain to see the bad, see the negative. And I know
Mm-hmm.
you and I were just having a conversation not too long ago is if you put positive in, you're likely
Mm-hmm.
going to get positive out. And
Absolutely.
so feel like you do a really good job of that in now wanting to grow an audience, grow a community where hopefully it helps people not to see the negative. Like you go to a game and somebody makes a bad play or somebody does something maybe out of character or out of whack, and we don't Debbie down on them for making that bad
Mm-hmm.
play. It's like, okay, there's no such thing as really a loss. It's a lesson in that opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
the opportunity to grow and develop and get better. And I think what you're doing with your podcast is so cool because you have all these past experiences that have now come together and you get to drop wisdom and knowledge and really teach this community that you're building and then also bring on at like really cool high caliber athletes as well to input. Can you talk a little bit about where your athletic journey started and where you played and just your background a little bit?
Yeah. So obviously, we went to high school together here in Omaha, Nebraska, and then had the opportunity to go play baseball at Cal State Fullerton. Was there for 2 years, and Joe Burrow kind of had a funny quote. Someone asked him what he learned from playing at Ohio State and LSU, and he was like, kind of corrected them. He was like, "I practiced at Ohio State. I played at LSU." That's kind of how I was at Fullerton. I feel like I practiced a lot, had a few in-game opportunities, but it was just a lot of practice. And I think when I was there, it was tough. I was very hard on myself and also like had a lot of negative thoughts. Like I was almost nervous going to practice every day. Like hopefully I don't mess up. Hopefully, I don't get blown up by a coach. And it wasn't until I ended up at the University of Portland just for a better opportunity, a place where I could probably play a little bit more. That I realized that I had so many opportunities to learn at Fullerton that I just saw as failures. And so I think that was kind of the number one thing that made me make a jump to actually playing and then having a lot more success on the baseball field once I got to Portland. And so I'm at Portland my junior year and had first time I really played collegiate baseball like consistently. And so there was a lot of learning lessons. I almost felt like I was a junior, but I felt like a freshman when it was just like the highs and lows of a season and stuff. And then it wasn't until I want to say the end of my junior year where I kind of thought like maybe I am just putting too much pressure on myself. And one of the quote I think that we've kind of talked about is worrying about how something could go wrong is not going to make it go right. And so that was kind of a big thing that I finally learned was like, if I keep worrying about this, it's not going to change the outcome. Like if I've put in the work, I've done all the time and stuff, like I just have to go out there and have confidence in myself and go play. And so I was thankful enough to have a decent amount of success at Portland, playing a lot more consistently. And it was uh, it was bittersweet to be done. I think I was kind of ready. I feel like I was like, what's the next journey in my life? You know, I've had a lot of opportunities. My parents gave me opportunities to play baseball growing up, and then our last game happened, and I was like, huh, like I am so thankful for everything that like I've gone through. Like it wasn't just, you know, roses the whole time. There was a lot of ups and downs, a lot of mental struggles, but by the time I graduated, I was very content with how my career was.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. It reminds me this quote I saw the other day. I read it, and I actually think it was a Dr. Seuss quote, crazy enough.
Mhm.
But it said, "We don't cry because it's over, but we cry
Mhm.
because it happened."
Yeah.
And I think there's so many life experiences and life lessons and things that I think of a tool belt, right?
Mhm.
When you were even going back to high school, you have this tool belt and you step in and you maybe think you know things and you know
Mhm.
how to do things and you know where you're going, but your tool belt's empty. And in your high school walk, I mean, I can talk on this a little bit. Like you face some adversity, you face some injuries, you played a lot of sports. You're super, super talented, one of the most talented athletes that I've had the opportunity to be around growing up. And you just continue to work and you continue to bounce back from adversity and bounce back from injury. And when things maybe weren't going your way, you continue to work and
Mhm.
practice, as you talk about.
Mhm.
And that built your tool belt. And then when you went to Cal State, it was the same thing. Like I just heard it was just you built your tool belt and you built your tool belt, and you built your tool belt, and you get to
Mhm.
Portland and it's your time. And
Yeah.
now you have the tools, you have the resources. And I think so many of those resources come from people along the way.
Mhm.
They come from people speaking life into you and speaking truth into you and maybe seeing something in you that you don't even see in yourself.
Mhm.
So, can you talk a little bit about like who were some of those people along the way? Maybe going back to childhood, then
Mhm.
to high school, and then to college? Because I think with seasons, like things evolve, people come into your life. And can you touch on some of those people in your life?
Yeah, absolutely. I think to start, I have to just go with my parents. One thing that I think I heard later in my career, I think when I was at Portland, was our strength coach who he loves podcasts, has his own podcast, but he almost like everything he talked about was from a podcast, but it was just so much great insight, so many great quotes. But he was like, "Your all of your guys' parents have put in so much work to get you to where you are now. And you not giving your best is almost just like a slap in the face to them. Like they've done so much for you." So I'd be in the weight room and I wouldn't want to hit like another set of RDLs because I hated RDLs. But I would just be like, all right, my parents have done so much for me to get here. Like, I'm not going to just like give up now. They've instilled to me to like work hard and make the most out of every situation and be the best version of myself. They tried to build me up to be the best version of myself. So I'm not going to let them down. And so I think my parents, number one, have to be the people that got me to where I am now. And then also, I think a lot of people have coaches that do a good job of explaining things, but maybe they're not as like personable. Like either it's tough to like really get to know them or they don't have a great idea of getting to know you. And so when I was at Fullerton, I kind of struggled with that is, you know, the coaches had so much good baseball insight, but they didn't really check in much. They weren't ever like, how are you? How's your day going? How's life? And so it wasn't until I got to Portland where I think just more from like a lifestyle aspect was you have no clue how someone's day is and how like what impact you can make on them. So at Portland, I would show up to practice and it was so nice to like walk in and be like, "Hey, how's it going? Like, how are classes? Is like, how's life? and like they like knew I had a girl, and they'd be like, "How's your girlfriend doing? How's that? Like, you doing all right? Anything I can help with?" And it was just like that one made it so much easier for me to kind of open up to them, and then also made me learn that if someone like it makes such a positive impact on someone if you really are asking about how they're doing and you mean it. You really care about what they're saying. So the coaches at Portland definitely made an amazing impact. So I think those are just kind of the few people, and then your teammates. Um, I have so many great friends from Fullerton, but it almost seemed a little like selfish. You're at a place where a lot of guys get drafted from. A lot of guys were like very worried about their own statistics. And then I got to Portland and it was like, if we're going to win, it's because all of us are like on the same page. Like we're going to have success. We're going to be, a brother. You look left and right. Those are your guys. And so just at Portland, having those people that teammates that would always be uplifting. Like we it was kind of funny. We had this thing where it was just we just like it was called touch each other. We would get done with like a workout or I'd like drill in practice, and it was just like touch each other, and we're just giving high fives like all over the place. And like Jim Harbaugh is one guy who's very about his high fives, and I'm just like that's like such just a simple way to like show you're in this with someone else and you're on the same page. So I think just having a good culture and having those kind of just people around you, like you said, makes such a huge impact on your mindset and then just your day to day life.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. I think it's easy to think that we're in this
Mhm.
alone. Like
Yeah.
I make this joke that life can sometimes be like a piñata and we're just getting hit like left and
Yeah.
and so sometimes in the midst of getting hit, it feels like you can be alone, but I love this idea of just community and people and
Hmm.
honestly just being aware that you have people in your corner. Sometimes you
Hmm.
just have to reach out, or sometimes it's like as simple as a high five or a reach out text or the old coach that, hey, maybe you run into and he asks how you're doing in life.
Hmm.
And it makes me think of this quote of, hey, we can go fast alone, we can go further
Hmm.
together. And
Yeah.
so when you invite those people in, it just goes to show you how it can impact a season of your life, right? From Fullerton to Portland, I think there was night and day
Yeah.
difference in that. And so I like how you touched on mindset too, um,
Hmm.
in that because in the midst of, hey, you're standing in the weight room, you're doing those RDLs,
Hmm.
and that one thing that keeps coming back to your mind is, gosh, like my parents sacrificed so much for me to be here right now. Like
Hmm. Yeah.
I got to do the RDL, man. I got to do
Yeah.
last rep. And can you touch a little bit like on the idea like mindset? Like you have your athletes mindset podcast. Maybe you want to tackle a little bit about that. And I know you talked about how that came to be, but why is that a passion for you?
Yeah. I mean, I was definitely an overthinker, and in baseball, it's so mental that if you continue to overthink, you're just going to dig yourself a hole. And so I really struggled, especially at Fullerton. I would, have an inner squad or a scrimmage, and I would have two strikeouts, and I would go back to my dorm room, and all I would be thinking about is, wow, like the coaches like probably think I'm terrible. They don't think I can hit a ball. Like, and I would just carry that into the next day. Like, hopefully tomorrow's not as bad as today. Like, that was my mindset instead of like tomorrow's a new opportunity, a new place to grow. And it's also like, I think everyone takes things very deeply, which is good. Like there's things that are important. When I go up to bat and my team needs me to be successful, it means that it's important. It means that I need to do something. I can be nervous about that. But there's so often where you put too much pressure on yourself where you're just like in your own head, like, I can't fail. If I fail here, then this happens. And I don't want that to happen. I don't want to let these people down. And then it got to a point where I was like, what? Like looking back at my career now, it's so easy to look back and be like, I don't remember more than half my at bats. Like I wish I did. I wish I could have like learned and like still be thinking about them. But I'm like, it really wasn't that deep. Like that one strikeout I had in a fall inter squad means really nothing compared to like the grand scheme of things in my life. And so I kind of thought about that as like, it's not that deep. Like, and every opportunity is something to grow on. So if I did strike out, it's like, oh, like, all right, I did this. I maybe swung at this pitch that was in the dirt. How can I learn from that so I'm better tomorrow? And so I think, like we talked about, is a positive outlook leads to a positive outcome. A negative outlook leads to a negative outcome. And so in my head, as I've grown and gotten older, it's like the more positive you are, the better your life is, really, in general, in every aspect. Um, and talking with some of the athletes on the Athletes Mindset podcast, it's the same thing. They're all professional athletes. Like they have had a lot of success in minor league baseball, major league baseball, and it all comes down to the same thing. It's just confidence. And people say like fake it till you make it. And I think that's a real thing. Like if you continue to tell yourself like I'm good, I'm a great player. Once I step in the box, that pitcher's not better than me, or vice versa. Once like I'm on the mound, that guy's in the box, he's not getting a hit off me. Like once you kind of just like instill that in your head over and over, it makes it so much easier just to believe it. Like if same thing with when you're a child and your parents tell you that like you're amazing, you're doing so good, like continue to like you believe it. You're like, huh, maybe like I am pretty cool. Maybe I am a good kid. Like once you just continue to hear things and you're telling yourself over and over again, then you just believe it. And one thing Bryce Matthews told me was your brain doesn't know when you're joking or not. So like if I as a joke tell myself like I suck, like I can't hit a baseball, there's nothing good about me, my like I cannot actually believe like and I think I don't actually believe it, but deep down my brain's like that's what I think about myself. Like that's who I am. But if you could just continue to tell yourself like I'm good, I'm making an impact on people, I'm gonna have a positive mindset about this game or this scenario, then it's just so easy to go out there and execute that.
Yeah. Gosh, that's good. That's good. Right, man. Shout out Bryce. Your
Yeah, shout out Bryce.
what was it? Your brain doesn't know when you're joking.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's I would I mean question back to that of to you like who do you think talks to you the most on a daily basis? Like one word answer.
like one person.
Yeah.
Oh, probably my mom.
Okay. I would I and then to answer a lot that's what a lot of people say like it's mom or dad or brother or when I
Yeah,
just got asked this question I said the same thing. I was like, I don't know, probably my mom. But
yeah.
the answer I got back was no, it's you. Like you
Oh yeah,
like you're in your thoughts. You're
yeah.
the one that's constantly telling yourself good things or bad things or whatever it is that you're talking to yourself, self-talk. And I know you and I have talked about this so much, but
Mhm,
it's vastly important and just connecting the dots between those things where your brain doesn't know if you're joking. And so
mhm,
you're telling yourself, I am good. I am able. I am a conqueror. I'm a beast. I
mhm.
can do this. I can hit a home run. I can go up and get the hit in the bottom of the ninth, the bottom of the seventh, whatever it is. Sooner or later, you're going to believe it.
Yeah.
You're feeding yourself like, gosh, like I can't do this. Like I can't do these reps. I can't get this
Mhm.
weight room. I can't. Like you should never say I can't.
Yeah.
I can't. No, like out of the vocabulary.
Mhm.
And I think that's what the mindset comes down to. Can you talk more on so the seasons of life that you've been in from okay, transition from high school to college, college now to getting into coaching a little bit
Mhm.
with the podcast and work. Can you
Mhm.
talk about how mindsets played a role like in the transitions? Because there, I mean, there's walls, there's adversity, there's
Mhm.
things that roadblocks you hit. I mean, you said it yourself, like you probably didn't want to be done with baseball at one point.
Yeah.
How does mindset play a role in just your everyday life outside of sports?
Yeah. Um, so when I first graduated, like I said, like had no clue what I wanted to do. And it almost felt like deep down I was like, I feel like I don't have any importance really. Like I feel like I'm not doing anything important. Like I was job searching, finally got a job, but it wasn't like exactly what I wanted to do, but I continue to grow in it and like feel more important in what the work I'm doing is important. And I think that was the toughest thing that a lot of former athletes go through, but then also just athletes in general. Like when I was up to bat, it felt important because like I had a whole dugout of guys behind me that like wanted me to succeed. And then I start working and I'm like, huh, like, I don't know, I don't have a whole dugout behind me like that's wanting me to like get hit a home run. Like that's not how it is. And then I talked to Bob LeBlanc, who's the head coach at Miller North. He said they had opportunity. So I joined him. And I think just like the coolest thing about that is I learned so much about my mindset and like how to have a positive mindset in my 4 years of playing. And now I can relay that on to these kids that are in high school way earlier before I ever learned it. And so, and like I kind of said earlier, is what kind of impact can you make on someone? There's days where I get done with work, I go to practice, and I'm just exhausted. Like I'm like, I would rather just go home and sit on my couch. But like I'm gonna go out here and I'm gonna practice what I preach. Like I preach like having a good mindset, doing the hard things when you don't really want to. So I'll go to practice and see these guys and they're putting in the same work that I did. And it's like just having someone in your corner that really pushes you And I always tell them too, like you got to have the mindset of a goldfish. Like when one bad thing happens, forget about it. Even if something like great happens, like for the moment, be like, yes, like let's go. I just hit a home run. But you can't like life's a game. It's just roller coasters, and it's like how can you maintain it so when you're down, you don't continue to go down, and when you're up, how can you kind of like plateau a little bit or continue to rise instead of just like riding the waves. So I think that's something that I try to do in my own life when things aren't going great. It's like, all right, like I've gone through every tough thing before in my life. I can get through this. And then also when I'm working with the players, it's like, how can I make an impact on them or tell them something that makes them kind of think the same way, where they aren't negative with themselves. They talk positively to themselves. So I think that's just kind of been a huge aspect of trying to instill what it took me so long to learn into them earlier.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. I think it's cool that we're talking a little bit at the beginning about the tool belt,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like you get to high school and you think you have a full tool belt,
Yeah.
everything you need to be successful, but really your tool belt's pretty empty. And so now you being in the coaching shoes,
Mm-hmm.
you get to fill these kids' tool belts with knowledge and wisdom and life experiences that you've had that you can then pour
Mm-hmm.
on to them.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really cool aspect of coaching and getting into
Mm-hmm.
coaching with the experiences that you do have. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
this is your first year like coaching.
Mm-hmm.
What's that like experience been like? I know you guys just started games.
Yeah.
How has that been? And I'm sure like in the mid as the season goes on, you'll feel a little bit of that roller
Mm-hmm.
coaster. When that happens, do you kind of have things in place as a coach? I know as a player
Mm-hmm.
you try to do things, but like as a coach, when you feel that roller coaster,
Yeah.
what?
Um, I think the number one thing about coaching is so cool when you like talk to someone or you kind of like give them a tip or a pointer and then they put into work for a little bit and then it results in success. I feel like that's just like so fulfilling. Like it has nothing to do with like me. It's all about them that they put in the work, but it's so cool that like I helped someone. I made a positive impact on them. Um, when it comes to like riding the roller coasters. And especially like if a kid is really down, I think some coaches, like a little bit of old school, is just like reminding them what they did wrong. I think that's like the worst thing ever is like you would pop out a bunt and then you'd walk back to the dugout and the coach would be like, you can't do that. And it's like, I know, like obviously I did not try to do that. And so I think just being positive and also like everyone, I feel like everyone just needs like a little bit time to like cool down. Like once something goes crazy, if someone's having an issue, just like going at them right away and be like, hey, you need to do this, you need to do this, you're okay, like let's do this. It's like just get a deep breath. Like once they're in like a calmer state or like they've reflected a little bit on what happened, then it's easier to go and teach them. So I think that's one thing that I've tried to talk to players a little bit, do a better job of is let them know like, all right, like you just struck out. I know you're pissed off. I'm not going to talk to you right now, but like next inning, you're going to come in and I'm going to be like, hey, what could we have done better? Like you could have maybe done this or had this idea. Um, so I think that's kind of the number one thing. And Darren Erstad, who used to be the head coach at Nebraska, he came and talked to us, our team, our Portland team, when we were here in Omaha playing Creighton, and he let us know he was like, one thing, once you guys are done playing, you guys have kids or you start coaching or anything, the game is way harder than you think it is, and that's for all sports. I've felt this too, where a kid will strike out, and I'm like, how could they do that? Like I would have gone up there and hit a home run, like. But that's what everyone's kind of ego and like everyone just kind of thinks. But it's like take a step back. Like if I was that good, I'd be playing Major League Baseball right now. So it's like realize the game is hard. Life is hard. And these kids are way younger than you. Like they still have a lot of learning to do. So don't think that you have it all figured out. And then also like don't bash them or make them almost feel bad for not having success that you think you would because it's way harder than you really remember.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I think you're in such a unique spot in a sweet spot really from just being not so far removed from playing, but
Mm-hmm.
now you're injected right into coaching. And I
Mm-hmm.
just think if I would have had a coach of your caliber and your age and your experience and your mindset that you go into it with, the impact that that would have had on me at an early age.
Mm-hmm.
And so not thinking that these kids are have to go out there and get it perfect all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Actually showing up at practice with the mindset of, okay, like I understand we're not going to be perfect every
Hmm.
time, every at bat, but how do we get 1% better still?
Yeah.
How do we just show up, put our best foot forward? We talk so much here about maximizing our potential. Like,
Hmm.
what does that look like in the day to day? And I think maximizing your potential is just showing up, controlling what you can control, and giving 110% in the things that you can control, your attitude, your effort, your focus. And and it's cool that everything kind of comes full circle for you and now getting to coach. Um, what's one thing? This is kind of a random coaching question, but what's one thing that you maybe learned, like you felt a coach really stuck into you at an
Hmm.
early age that maybe you have carried with you all this time, and now you maybe want to throw it on to these kids?
Yeah. Very cliche. I mean, like growing up, we had a few of the same coaches, and it seemed like every year, every season, we would have at least one talk where the coaches would be like, I would do anything to be in your shoes. Like, don't take it for granted. Like, enjoy it. And like at the time, we're like, you just made us like run across the football field 20 times. Like, we're dead. This sucks. Like, no, you don't want to do this anymore. But once you're done, I feel like it's so easy to look back and be like, I wish I could do that again. Like, I was with my boys, I was like with the people I was the closest with, and it was fun. And so I think that's kind of one thing that just like maybe a few coaches in general, or especially at Portland, he talked to our head coach talked to his seniors like before the season started, was like, hey, like don't get down on yourself. One, because you guys need to be leaders, but also like you don't want to look back at your last year and just think like, wow, I was having so many negative thoughts, or like I let myself just continue to go down the rabbit hole of negative thoughts and not having success. And so I think that was one thing that I really took away and just kind of like stayed with me for a while, is like really enjoy the moment. Like I know I've said it to you, but like today's the best day of the year until tomorrow. Like this is the only time we can control. So enjoy it. And I think everyone's heard it, is just you can control your attitude and your effort. Like I know there's days where it's tough and maybe you're exhausted and sleep well, had a lot of class, but it's like I have this opportunity to be the best version of myself and give my best effort. And what if I do anything less than that, then I'm not living up. I'm not maximizing my potential.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so good. I think a mindset like rewiring, renewing that needs
Mm-hmm.
to take place is again kind of going back to what we talked about at the beginning, is that rewiring of seeing everything in a negative manner.
Mm-hmm.
And as you said, making the most of today, understanding today as a blessing. There are good things all around and we just have to see it. Like yeah, I'm sure like you and I could both agree on this. Like I would do anything to go run 22 110s again on the Miller Lite
Yeah.
field in 110-degree weather where the bottom of our cleats are melting. Like
Yeah.
I would do that to go in the weight room one more time and
Mm-hmm.
be trying to put up crazy weight for no reason. Like
Mm-hmm.
those are the days. And
Yeah.
now you get to be a part of that all over again with the next generation while empowering them and encouraging them
Mm-hmm.
to to continue to go on um, in their athletic careers and in life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's sweet to see that you are using again your gifts, your talents, your abilities, your tool belt to then not just stand on the sideline and have it for yourself and have a
Mm-hmm.
me attitude of I know it all, but you're taking all that and you're throwing it out there for the world to see. Like
Mm-hmm.
I meant what I said at the beginning when it's like, man, you've worked your tail off to get where you are. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're talented. You work harder than a ton of people, than almost everybody I know to bring it forth 100% into whatever it is you're doing. And now you get to share that with your athletes and with
Mm-hmm.
people all over the world in your podcast. And so um I there's one question I ask everybody that comes on to the pod of what is one thing that you would tell your younger self or that you would tell all of our athletes that is like been the biggest thing that's stuck with you over the years of just
Mm-hmm.
it's one piece of advice that you would give to your younger self?
Yeah. Um, It's funny you do that because I do the same thing at the end of my podcast, and I kind of stole it from you. But um,
Well, it's great. It's a great question, right?
it's a great question, and I feel like it makes you think a little bit, like what could I have done better? And um, I think one of the number one things is you can't care what other people think about you. Like you want to have a good reputation. I think that means something, but people don't like people don't remember your worst failures or like the home runs you hit. Like after a while, like that just goes away. But they remember how like you made them feel. Like what impact did you have on them? Did you have a positive impact when your name goes into their brain, or are they like, oh, like don't want to see that guy again, or like, oh, like I wish I could like run into that guy at the grocery store. Like I would love to have another conversation. He made a positive impact on me. And so I think that's kind of the number one thing is if I could go back and tell myself it's don't worry so much about what other people think of you, but what kind of positive impact can you make on them? Because I think so many athletes now they want to look like they're good on social media. They want to post like them, doing something cool. And it's like, does that really matter if everyone on your team like didn't really enjoy being around you? No. Like, it doesn't care how great you are at your sport if you don't have anyone by your side, anyone supporting you. So I think just going back, not that I'm saying that I was like a terrible teammate or anything, but just like I wish I could have done more to make sure like people around me were happy. They were, on the right path. If they needed anything, I was there. And just making sure I'm making a positive impact on people.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so good. And you were a great teammate. You were a great teammate.
Thanks.
You
Thanks.
were a great leader because I mean, this modest, but going back to high school, like this guy went on to play college baseball and play baseball at the highest level, but he was our starting quarterback at Millard West, one of the biggest high schools in Class A, and we were ranked number one in the state for a majority of your 2 years as a starter. And we were a pretty darn good team. And who's the guy who leads the team and typically leads the charge? The quarterback. And so you did a great job of using your vocal leadership ability mixed with your attitude, your effort, your focus, your body language, showing up, serving your teammates, being selfless, and ultimately doing what needed to get done in order to put the team in the best position to win. And so it was, man, that was some of the best days ever. I mean,
100%. Yeah. I still have dreams about like I'm just randomly on a high school football field and I'm like, oh, like I'm about to be the man again. And then I wake up and I'm like, ah, I gotta go to work. But
and I'm gonna do this to you. I'm gonna do this with you while you're on the pod. This guy never threw interceptions. Never,
oh, in practice, I think I
never
never threw a single interception besides,
to this guy, to me,
yeah.
the shortest guy in the field. But man, I will have that memory just forever and just it was so funny. But yeah, this guy can't speak highly enough of his leadership ability, who he was as a teammate, a friend, now a brother, somebody I get to do life with. And I just want to reiterate what he said in that last part of what he would tell his younger self, and it's, hey, people don't always remember what you said, but they will remember how you made them feel. So as you guys, as we're wrapping up this pod, remember that. Like as you go into your day to day, as you're walking and interacting with people, having conversations around your teams, around your teammates, around people in the workplace, remember that. Like, how are you acting? Like, what's your attitude? Like, are you bringing energy? Are you an energy vampire and sucking everybody down with you? Or are you a cheerleader and you're bringing energy and positive vibes into the workplace, into the team, into the culture, into the dugout, into the sideline, right? It's that thing. And I think that's so good, Tristan. I appreciate you coming on here and just all that you do, all that you are. If you haven't checked it out, go check out the Athletes Mindset podcast. This dude is top notch at what he does, and he's got some really cool guests that come on there as he touched on it. Professional athletes. I mean, people in the Braves organization, the Tigers, the Astros, high level athletes. So go check that out. And you got any final thoughts? Or are you good?
No, thank you for having me. Yeah, and I love what you're doing. Same thing, bringing a positive vibe, making, uplifting people as much as you possibly can. And I think there's something to say about people that serve like you do and go out of their way to make a positive impact on people. And so I think that you just can't be thanked enough for what you do, not only for me but all the people around you, and just bringing the most out of them. So, and then thank you again for having me on.
Yeah, appreciate you, brother. All
Yes,
right,
sir.
guys. As always, be great.